there. I'm gonna so we can't hear all of her baby talk, but we can still see her face. All right, we're moving on. I think it's Brittany, right? Was it your turn?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, are you going to make your second creative appearance this evening?
Oh yeah, I have to. Find... Yeah. You want to explain, or should I?
I'll start. So I'm going to share some poems, like little baby poems. But before that, we have a story, I think, to share that Koof and I wrote together. And it's about the hero's journey, which I thought was something that Joseph Campbell invented. But it turns out that he co-opted it from lots of other Eastern philosophers and storytellers. But you have like a distilled version that we worked from. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. I guess anybody that knows of Dan Harmon, who created Rick and Morty and Community, knows that, well, maybe doesn't know, but he made this thing called the story. Well, he didn't make the story circle. He condensed Joseph Campbell's hero's journey story circle into 8 points. And it kind of means that each story, most every story hits these 8 points. And it's you, like the character is in a place of comfort, but you need something. So you go on a journey and search for it.
And then you find it?
Find it, but you pay a heavy price.
Oh wait, was find 5 or 6?
You
need, go, search, find.
Take.
You need, go, search, find, take.
Return, change.
Return, changed.
So you return home or back to the familiar having changed. And that is like the basics of a story. So I was like, oh, you can make an 8-sentence story if each sentence hits one of those beats. And I was like, okay, let me try and write some really short stories. And then if I make anything cool, I'll flesh it out and make some more sentences for it. So yeah, that's where this kind of exercise grew from.
Yeah, and so we just went back and forth. And I think I started the first line, so I'm going to read the first line of each point. So I wrote the first line of each point, and then you wrote the second line, and then I wrote, and so on and so forth. So do you want to read them flipping like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. Before the sun is up, Seth crosses the yard for the 1000th time into his father's slaughterhouse and pulls on the rubber pants and rubber boots and rubber gloves and breathes.
Gazing out over the farm towards the sunrise on the horizon, with one large sigh, he recognizes his living friends, and they recognize the bright orange color of his deadly uniform.
A monarch butterfly, the same orange as Seth's suit, pauses above his head.
Mariposa monarca, Seth remembered. Seth remembered the name from a Spanish nature documentary about their mass migration to Mexico in the winter.
It could take a whole short life, he recalled, for a butterfly to make its way to where it was going. Oh, it is the same every morning. John comes from behind the pig hooks as his father would and hands a saw to his son, who, smelling blood for the first time that day, winces and vomits, and John calls him a pussy and tells him any worthless piece of shit would get on with it already.
Seth turns to wipe his mouth and hide his horrible poker face while thinking to himself, why doesn't he just hire some non-pussy worthless piece of shit and let me sleep in?
Ever since he had 13, his father's aggression had turned more and more toward him. Good, he has thought that at least his mom is being left alone, though the uncut silence between his parents is deafening.
Seth wishes he could tell him where to stick those pig hooks, but every time he imagines what he would say, his father's words regurgitate to the tip of his tongue.
At breakfast, he watches his mother distill simple syrup for the feeder in the small garden she keeps behind the kitchen. On this day in health class, Seth is again doodling the flowers that make a pig's organs when Sam passes him a flyer about a drag show in Tulsa, and he writes on it back to her, "Fuck it, let's go."
While contemplating the sudden rash decision and ignoring the lessons about human anatomy, Seth turns his pockets inside out as a nonverbal flag of acquiescence to Sam.
She smiles at him in a way that mixes up the insides of his body, which is mapless and wild to him and completely confusing.
She saw him, really saw him, in a way that no one else ever has. And he, in the bright reflection of her smile, could only glimpse momentarily.
Not knowing the difference between kinship and romantic attraction, he chalks it up as something to definitely invest in. With barely enough gas money, they get to the show, and somebody honeys glitter onto Seth's cheek, and he shines shamefully, unstoppably from the inside.
In this moment, he barely remembers the tongue lashing his father gave him when he dyed his hair for Spirit Week.
The teal had made him feel airy, and John lost it at supper when he caught Seth flirt with his own reflection in the dark window.
Aiming for a clear noon sky blue, the teal now reminds him of a foggy morning sunrise on the farm.
How far he'd come, with this aquamarine shimmer now flashing on his cheekbones in a pulsing and totally unfamiliar room. Seth gets drunkenly pulled on stage by a queen with the same name as his grandmother, who hands him a pair of scissors, and as tears stream unexpectedly down his face and confetti falls, he cuts the clothes from his body.
As the audience roars, Seth's natural reflexes to cover his shame I'm going to start that over. As the audience roars, Seth's natural reflex to cover his shame is overwhelmed by this new feeling of total acceptance.
The large panel windows reflect back to him a room full of people giving no shits, and he throws his shirt into the crowd.
Seth takes a deep breath, breathing in glitter, sweat, and acceptance.
Topless, he gives a slurred acceptance speech that crunches unnoticeably through the PA system and touches briefly on the beauty of the monarch butterfly. When the show is over, Sam and Seth find the car has been towed, and they sleep at the station waiting for the next bus home, which will arrive 90 minutes after Seth's shift in the slaughterhouse begins.
Seth closes his eyes and can still see Ethel's heavily make-upped face, pulling him up on stage. Opens his eyes and jumps to his feet at the sight of the same face, sans makeup, sitting in a small red Camry at the stoplight outside.
They roll down the window, hold up Seth's t-shirt, and ask if he and Sam want to go to a real party.
Seth looks to Sam, looking for a hint of where the night should go.
Ever the mature one, Sam rolls her eyes and says, "Toss us that shirt, huh?" The sun is up as Seth walks past his rubber uniform and into the field where the meat is grown, and he opens the gate.
The pigs, who barely recognize him without his brightly colored executioner's outfit, clump and swirl together like a colony of penguins, all trying to find safety in the center of this sounder of swine.
I love that. His father comes out of the slaughterhouse hiking his rubber pants up.
John freezes. The pigs freeze, both out of fear and confusion.
Jumping to motion, John recites, "If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, you're fired," as he sneers through the stock. While the pigs stand still because they don't understand, John sees the light catch glitter on his son's cheekbone as he turns away.
Facing the horizon, Seth sits cross-legged on the dirt near the open gate and waits for the worthless piece of shit pigs to recognize their freedom.
Feeling his father behind him, he says, "I'm moving out."
A single pig rushes for the gate, clears the opening, and gets 50 yards into freedom before stopping and realizing it's not being followed.
Still sitting in the dirt, Seth pulls out his phone and Googles flights to Mexico City, then winks at the pigs. Hero's journey.
Yeah, that was a fun exercise.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun to write. I feel like it has its limitations, like we talked about, but it's fun to like try to see the arc of a story within like a very short period of time and like only have like so much economy that you can work with to tell something.
Yeah, and then also the collaboration, because like when you write one sentence for each 8 points, it's supposed to end up as a full story. So then you're adding parts in between those, and eventually you're just like wedging more things in between each sentence. And
Yeah.
I think eventually you have to stop.
Yeah. There's also a really fun freedom in that though. Like you would send something and I would be like, oh, okay, we'll go this way. Yeah, okay, this sounds good. I would have never gone that way.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
Yeah, if anybody wants to know more about that exercise, just text me or write. Tell you about it.
Do a group exercise with it.
Yeah, next time.